right, so I have two properties that we're in the process of reviewing offers on right now. One is Stonegate and then one is Finchley. So we'll start with Stonegate because it's a little simpler than the Finchley offer. And there's no wrong or right way to do an offer review or to decide which offer to choose, except you truly shouldn't make an emotional decision, right? So our goal as agents is to help our sellers to make a business decision and not a personal decision, which is why even before they revise the listing agreement, like if somebody sent me a buyer letter for my sellers, I would note which ones had letters, and I would tell them that I would recommend they don't read the letters prior to making a decision on which offer to go with, because then it becomes an emotional decision instead of a business decision. Okay, and our sellers are emotional people because they're tied to their homes. They've lived there usually for several years. They've raised kids there, right? Their dog died in the backyard. Like, they're emotional about their house, and rightly so. There's no reason they shouldn't be emotional, which is part of the reason they hire us. So like this one, we actually had one of the buyers ask for the sauna, and my seller was like, well, that almost makes me not even want to deal with them because they asked for the sauna. He's like, but I'm going to try not to be that petty. Right? So like little things like that trigger emotions for them. We had an offer one time. We had a property in Sassoon that had chickens, and the agent actually wrote into the offer that the buyers wanted the chickens and that they reserve the right to rename them. Right? And my sellers were like, why would they put that in there? Like, we love those chickens. Those are our pets. Like, number one, we wouldn't leave them behind. Number one, they're telling us that they're going to rename them. Like, that's just rude, right? So sellers are emotionally tied to their properties and to their stuff. And so we're trying to help them make a decision. We could take the whole offer to your seller and be like, here's all 16 pages of the offer. Have fun interpreting it and reviewing it, or try to like lay them out side by side, which is probably a little easier now that at least it's all on like the first 3 pages versus hidden on every page of the offer like it used to be. But I did update the offer review form. So I have a little spreadsheet. I'll add the new one into the PC Peeps folder and delete the old one because I revamped it to match the layout of the new residential purchase agreement. And I didn't include every little thing on this offer review. There's some stuff that it's like nitpicky things and it doesn't matter ultimately. Okay. So this one's simpler because it's just 2 offers, right? So I start with the sales price. So I just went down the RPA grid and added stuff in here. So I have like sales price, close the escrow dates, and this just allows me to look at it side by side and allows the seller to look at it side by side. What's different, what varies. The LTV, the loan to value ratio, that calculates automatically for me. So I don't have to do math. It just takes the loan amount and the purchase price and does the math calculation. It's got the loan contingency, the appraisal contingency, and if there was an appraisal gap. And then I only did 3 of the next, I think there's like 6 items there: the investigation contingency, the review of disclosures, the review of the prelim, the review of the HOA documents, right? So there's like a whole bunch of stuff in this section, and I just peeled it down to 3. So the investigation contingency, access to the property, and review of disclosures, because usually the other things are going to match these. Okay, it would be odd for somebody to be like, we're going to review the disclosures in 3 days, but we're going to review the HOA docs or the, I don't know what else, and the prelim in 17, right? So usually they match. So I'm not super concerned about listing every little thing. It's all going to kind of be lumped underneath there. And if it's not, I'm probably going to counter that offer to make it all match anyways. Right? I don't want 20 different time frames that we have to adhere to. I really just want 3. I want my investigations. I want review of seller disclosures, review of documents. I want my loan and my appraisal. That's really all I want. I just want 3 time frames. If I can make those match, that's even better. Okay. Does the buyer need to sell a home? It goes there. When are they going to take possession of the property? So time of possession. Seller to remain after close. And if it was yes, which like you'll see on the next one, then what the deposit is and what the per diem is. What are they being charged per day to stay there is on here. What items are remaining? And again, I didn't list all 20 items because some of them are like no brainers. And then I just put an other column to cover everything else because there's there's just like a bunch of little random stuff in there. So I just included the main stuff.
So
People
what
take bathroom mirrors.
So this has been a thing for a long time. Bathroom mirrors typically are, they're considered fixtures, but sometimes the sellers, they replace their bathroom mirrors with really fancy, like round mirrors or a really cool frame. And then they decide they want to take their mirror with them. So I just put this in here so that people know that that bathroom mirror is supposed to stay, and it causes us to have that conversation now instead of in a week after we've already agreed to this offer and they're obligated to sell that mirror with the property. I've had three properties that I can remember in my life as an agent where the sellers wanted to take the mirrors.
What things actually stay there? Like, is it the like the dishwasher stays there if there is, but the oven, the stove, and then is it the washer and dryers that stay there too, or no?
So typically in our market, the your stove, your dishwasher, your garbage disposal, and your built-in microwave, not like a countertop microwave, but your built-in microwave. Typically, those are the appliances that stay with the property. Your fridge and washer and dryer typically are considered negotiable.
Got it. Okay.
The reason that the stove and dishwasher are listed on the residential purchase agreement, and you should always check those boxes, is because technically the dishwasher is generally not like built in. It's just slid into place, sometimes held in with like a little screw, but it's technically not a built-in appliance. And so the seller could technically take the dishwasher with them. You just pull it out, you unplug it, and you take it with you. Same thing with a freestanding range, right? So we have built-in stoves that are actually like in the cabinets or in the countertops, but most of our ranges are freestanding. It's an oven range combo that just slides into the hole in the cabinet. And those technically are not a fixture. They're not affixed to the property. They're just as mobile as the fridge. In fact, it's probably easier to move the stove than it is your fridge, right? So that's why it's in the purchase contract. So when you're writing that offer, you always want to make sure that you check those boxes for the stove and the dishwasher so that those are included with the sale. If it's a built-in dish or a built-in, stovetop or a built-in oven, then it's considered a fixture and you don't necessarily have to check it, but just get in the habit. If you set up your templates, just set up your templates with those boxes already checked. Okay.
Why did it say above ground pool is not going to remain?
I included it on my offer comparison because of the fact that I use this comparison for all of my properties. And so if I come into a listing that has an above ground pool, it's not technically a fixture. It's sitting on top of the land. The seller could take it with them. So this just states whether the buyer wants it or not. So because I use this for all of my comparisons, I left it in there. It probably would have been more appropriate for me on this one to put in A, like not available versus no, but I just did yes and no. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is Stonegate, right? So I'm like, they have a regular pool like in ground. So I'm like, why does it say above ground pool?
Because it was just one of the selections on what items remain. So out of all the things on there that I thought were pertinent, looking at offers moving forward, I thought that was probably an important one. Same thing with like potted trees and shrubs, right? So I just included things whether the property had it or not.
Gotcha.
I included this other column. So like things that didn't fit in the main items that I selected, like shed, sauna, the countertop for the kitchen. It's all there on that list so that I can add it in. Natural hazard zone disclosure, escrow fees, title fees, county transfer tax, city transfer tax, and the home warranty. And then I left a box for other terms in case there was something else that I needed to fill in there. And then I did a summary for them and then what my recommended response would be. So when looking at these two offers, most of the terms are very similar. This one doesn't have an appraisal contingency. This one had an appraisal gap, but this one was higher and this one was lower, right? So it's like, where do we want to go with that and how do we want to proceed? And so I would say between these two offers, there's no clear winner. I would much rather not have an appraisal contingency than an appraisal gap, but I'd much rather have 800,000 than 780,000, right? I'd rather chance it and hope that we get 800,000 with at least coming in at 790,000 versus 780,000 with no appraisal contingency. So I'd rather take the chance, right?
So what's an appraisal gap?
So an appraisal gap is if this property appraises for less than 800,000, the buyer is willing to come in with $10,000 over the appraised value up to that contract price. So if we only appraise at 790,000, we're still in contract at 800,000. The buyer will cover that gap.
Okay, I thought that's what it meant, but then the first offer doesn't have anything there, so do they not have any money to cover?
They don't have an appraisal contingency at all, so they're willing to buy the property regardless of the appraised value.
Got it.
But you have to make sure that they have that $10,000, right? Because they're 100% financing it. So do you check to make sure that they have extra money to make up that $10,000?
Yes, so I would expect to see that in their proof of funds.
Okay.
So I'm going to expect to see 2 to 3% of the purchase price plus $10,000 in their proof of funds to make sure that they've got funds to cover the closing costs and that appraisal gap.
When you ask for proof of funds, are you just looking at their bank statements? Does the lender send that to you? Does the buyer send that to you?
Usually I get it from the listing or the buyer's agent.
Mhm.
And it can be as simple as bank account, or sometimes I do verify it with the lender. So we do have the right to verify that information with the lender. And so sometimes it's just a call to the lender like, hey, just calling that you've actually seen their bank statements or reserve account statements. They do have enough funds available to cover all of whatever your closing costs are. And then they put in a $10,000 appraisal gap. If our appraisal comes in low, do they also have those additional funds available? Absolutely.
With the one without the appraisal contingency, you still have to get an appraisal on the property.
Yes.
So if it comes in at way below, let's just say 750, they're going to have to come up with $30,000, even though because they waived the appraisal contingency.
They are, or they could turn around and cancel. But if they cancel, I get their 15,000.
Okay. Because they release that contingency
Because
off
they
the bat.
release that contingency.
Okay. Ooh, that's scary.
And Amy, do you do that? Do you do that before you meet with your clients? You legit call your lenders or check all that information?
It depends on the scenario and how many offers. So like with Finchley, I have yet to call the lenders, although several lenders have reached out to me because we've got 9 offers. Well, technically we now have 10 offers on that property. And so I'll wait and see which ones are the top. And then before we decide who we're going to move forward with, I'll call and verify all the information. Okay. When it comes down to these contingency periods, right? So we talked about the appraisal contingency. No appraisal is better than a $10,000 appraisal gap, 14-day appraisal contingency. The loan contingencies both match at 17 days. This is a 21-day close of escrow. I'd really like to see that loan contingency shortened. There's no reason to leave a loan contingency in place until the closing disclosure or the CD is issued 3 days before closing. We just need to get through that initial underwriting. Ultimately, like in a normal transaction that's 30 days, a 17-day loan contingency is really just going to get you through, for the most part, that initial underwriting to make sure that the buyers can meet the conditions that the underwriter has come back with. So neither of these, they're the same on both of them. I sent out a counter offer to shorten those up, because I don't want to be 17 days into a contract and have somebody cancel on me because they can't qualify for a loan. Okay. when we start looking at this inspection contingency time period, one of them's 17 and one of them's 10. I much prefer the 10 days over 17. Again, I don't want to be 3 weeks into a transaction and have somebody decide they cancel because the dog barks next door. Like, I want them to make a decision on this property. I want them to have their inspections and investigations and make that decision in those first few days, that first week. Make a decision or move on. I don't want to hang out with you.
So on these, the 17 days, is that basically they could back out before the 17 days and still keep their good faith deposit?
Yep.
So who determines, like, is that when they write it in the contract? Like, who determines the number of days?
So the buyer wrote it into the contract at 17 days. Well, technically they just left it at the default, which is 17.
Got it. Okay.
Versus this agent that shortened it up to 10.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. This access to the property, this allows them to go to request access to the property at any time. That defaults to 17 days on the contract. This one has a $sign in front of it. It's not $17. I just didn't get the formatting correct on it. It was late last night when I was working on this. When I write offers, I usually correct it to 30 days so that, or whatever the close of escrow is, so that we have access the entire time. This allows them to do inspections, investigations, to come back and measure carpet or couch if their couch will fit, right? So whatever that is, it allows us to request to get access to the property. For the most part, even if this expires, when people request to see the property, I've yet to see anybody deny the request, but they could. Like day 18 rolls around, they can be like, no, you're outside of your access to the property, and so we're not gonna give you access. Totally in the seller's right to do so. The review of disclosures, so this kind of fits under the rest of those in the grid. It's like L4 through L7. It's disclosures, prelim, HOA docs, review of leased and liened items, all fall under this bracket here, which is 17 days. This truly should match the investigation contingency. So when I go in and write offers, I have it all match. So this is probably going to get countered to all match the same. Make sense?
Except the access to property will be 30 days.
Except the access. And this one I would leave at 17. I'm not going to counter them on access to the property. I'll just leave it as is. If the buyer needed to sell a home, it would be here. And I actually added a couple more lines. You'll see it on Finchley to accommodate what those terms were. Time of possession is here. So neither one of these, from like here down, these offers are very similar. And there's no clear winner going through this item, except for the sellers were like, well, forget them. They can't have our sauna. And I almost don't want to work with them because they asked. I'm like, well, it's still a solid offer. It has no appraisal contingency. So we'll just keep the sauna and change the purchase price. We're still good. On this escrow fee, so just know it's typical for the area in Solano County. It's typical the buyer pays title and escrow fees and the seller pays the transfer tax. There is no city transfer tax anywhere in Solano County except for Vallejo. So just be aware of that. So this one here, each their own on the escrow fees. When I send this offer over to title, if we decided to go with this one and it said each their own, title's going to kick it back and be like, I need you to further clarify because we don't have each their own. There's one escrow fee. So who's paying for it? So on this one, I'm going to counter back that the buyer's paying for it, but it could say that they split it or whatever. So we just kind of compare. Again, no real winner, except that this one just put in something that means absolutely nothing in our area. So it has to be clarified. Home warranty here, who's paying for the home warranty and how much is it? So I always note that. So that's kind of, when you're looking at it, and you've got to really look at what's important to the seller, right? What's important. So in this one, really, truly the bottom line is important. So they really, if we had to pick one without countering, we would probably pick the $800,000 offer if we didn't counter anybody. Okay, and that's because it's higher. They've got an appraisal guarantee in there. I'm pretty sure I can probably get it to appraise at least $790,000. I was really hoping for 800,000, but the other property that's really similar to this one, the appraisal came in low, so they're renegotiating. They were in contract at 799, so I know it's going to close a little lower. So
Did you call them and ask them that?
yeah,
or-
I've been having an
Okay.
ongoing conversation with that
Okay.
agent.
Okay.
So yeah, so I know that one, that was what I was banking on as my comp in order to get to 800,000. And without that one in play, this one's got nicer updates and upgrades. It's a nicer landscape lot. It's got some other features that the other one doesn't have, but we might be pushing it to get up to 800,000, but I'm pretty sure I can get it to 790. So I'm pretty sure I can probably net 20,000 over this one. It's got a shorter investigation contingency period.
Didn't offer one say that they would come up, like your notes, it said that they'd come up to asking price?
It did. It did. So this was just like, if I wasn't going to counter anybody, which one would I consider the stronger offer?
Gotcha.
I would consider this one. I did have a conversation with the other agents. So I know that they will, this one, she said she was pretty sure they'd come up to asking. So we did end up countering both of these offers. This one we countered at 800,000. We countered that they're going to shorten up their loan and investigation contingencies to 10 days. That the sauna doesn't convey. That we're going to max the home warranty at 600,000. I think is the only things that we ended up countering on that one. Oh, and that the buyer would take care of any lender required repairs, because these are both VA offers, so they're going to require that VA pest clearance. So we just said that, hey, the buyer's going to take care of any lender required repairs. I don't anticipate a ton of pest repairs on Stonegate. It's a pretty clean property. Okay, on this one, we countered this one as well. I asked for an increased deposit of $10,000 from 6,000. Typical for the area is 1%, which would be 8,000. But I wanted to get it a little closer. Like they're saying that they're willing to put $10,000 skin in the game on the appraisal. So I know they've got those. So let's bring it in as the deposit instead. So I countered on the deposit. I countered on the loan contingency and review of disclosures that they would all match at that 10-day mark with the rest of their investigation contingency. And then we countered on this escrow fees that the buyer would pay the escrow fee. And that the buyer, because again, these are both VA offers, that the buyer would take care of the lender required repairs. So that's the counter offer. We did a seller multiple counter offer, which allows us to counter more than one offer. And again, if both of those people accept, it doesn't automatically put us into contract. The seller has to turn back around and decide which offer they're going to go with.
And VA, you can close in 21 days. That's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Oh, the other thing that we did here was because with no appraisal contingency, it's a VA offer. The FVAC, the FHA VA amendatory clause is still in play, which states that if the house doesn't appraise for contract price because they're a VA buyer, they have the right to cancel. So we countered that the seller was or the buyers were waiving their rights under the FVAC.
Wow. That's
Because-
experience.
Because on both of these, even if the appraisal came in low, even though we have an appraisal gap in place or no appraisal contingency, they could still cancel and walk away with their deposit if the appraisal comes in low based on the FVAC.
Mhm. Wow.
It supersedes the contract. Okay,
So
that-
potentially, Amy, if they both say yes, then you're gonna have two of the exact same offers, pretty
if-
much,
If
right?
they both say yes, they're going to be very similar, except offer one still will have no appraisal contingency, where offer two will only have an appraisal gap. So we'll end up going
Oh.
with offer
So
one.
that will be that you're deciding. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And the multiple counter offer, you don't have to counter everybody the same. None of the terms have to match. We just brought them up to basically the same level so that we could make a decision. So that would be the Stonegate offers. The Finchley offers, apparently somebody sent me over an offer last night at like 11:30. It wasn't a spectacular offer. I'm not even going to go in and add it to the spreadsheet at this point. There's better offers. So again, I just expanded my spreadsheet to accommodate all the offers. I usually do it based on the agent's name, not the buyer's names, and that's to alleviate any discrimination, right? So that way they can't tell what the ethnicity of the buyers are. We just have the agent's names on there. So I try to take all the personality out of this. And then same thing, it's just a side-by-side comparison of all the offers. The sellers on Finchley, they originally were going to list their property and move into a rental. And then right before we went on the market, they ended up getting orders to PCS back east. And so instead of, they would rather now, so they're supposed to move sometime in the May area. And instead of moving into a temporary house and then moving again when they PCS, they would much rather stay in the property. So I let all the agents know that contacted me that that would be their preference. Like if you can figure out a way to keep them in there until June 5th, like that could give you the leg up on other offers. So that's something that's really important to the sellers, and maybe more so. I haven't sat down and talked with the sellers yet and reviewed the offers with them. We'll be doing that after I get off the call here at some point, to see, because we've got this really nice, pretty offer over here as offer one, and these are just in alphabetical order. There's no other order for that other than this. That's the only way. I just put them all in a folder, and then my computer automatically sorted them alphabetically, and that's how I put them on the spreadsheet. Okay, so if you're wondering, like, is there a rhyme or reason? No, there's not. I just threw them on there. Sometimes I will go in there and like highlight them, like here's my 2 favorites, or here's the top ones, or here's the red ones, like we don't care about these. So sometimes I will kind of pick and choose that way. We've got offers between 650 and 710,000. If I were just gonna pick an offer based on what's here, on the strongest offer, the 710, highest isn't always best, but this one came in at 710. There's a 3-day loan contingency. There's no appraisal contingency. There's no inspection contingency. It truly is the strongest offer. They're allowing a 30-day close of escrow and then to stay in the property for an additional 60 days, 14 days free, and then basically $3,300 a month to stay in the property. So this truly is the strongest offer with no appraisal contingency, no inspection contingency. This one, it is where it is, right? But taking into account that what's important to my sellers is that they maybe they don't want to move twice. They may only want to move once. So then we go across and we figure out, well, which one's going to allow us to stay? So we're looking at the seller to remain after close. So this one's 4-1. This one's got them beat because it puts them at 418. This one's 29 days with a 45-day close of escrow. That's still going to put us pretty close to that April time frame. This one here allows them to stay until June 5th. So this one could be good, although the purchase price is at $650,000. This one also allows them to stay through the 5th of June, again at $650,000. This one has a 48-day close of escrow and an 89-day rent back at $2,800, which gets them into that first part of June. The rest of these don't get them there. It's a 29-day with a 30-day, so it's basically a 60-day possession. And this one said, I think maybe they could remain, but there was no additional documentation. So I would eliminate this offer. I would eliminate offer 9. I would eliminate offer 8 only because it doesn't let them stay and it's not the highest and best. I would eliminate the 680 so offer 2 and 3 because offer 1 is stronger and lets them stay longer. So it's really between offer 1 and then offer 4, 5, and 6. Does that make sense to everybody? based on what's important to my seller, that's kind of, I can eliminate those other offers. If we look at 4, 5, and 6, we've got one at 650, one at 670, and one at 670. The one at 650 is charging buyer's PITI for possession and their loan amount. So it's, oh, sorry, 4, 5, and 6. Here, 4 is first at 650. Oh, sorry, we have 650, 650, and 670. I was like, I'm off one. It's not lining up. So this one is charging $4,000 a month at 650,000. So I'd say that's probably not our best offer.
Oh,
Right. It's also FHA. They're not putting a lot down. Their contingencies for a loan and
A lot of
appraisal are
money.
17. Inspections are 10, which is nice. But I would say this doesn't put them in the best position. So then it would be between offers 5 and 6. We've got 650 and 670. Both conventional financing. This one's putting more money down. This one has shorter loan and appraisal contingencies. This one also has an appraisal gap of $20,000, right? So if the appraisal comes in lower, they're willing to pay $20,000 over the appraised value. Inspection contingencies are 7 days and 10 days. So they're pretty similar, a little tightened up, and both of them fix the review of disclosures as well. The rent back is similar. We got 3,000 and 2,800, with both giving them 30 days at no cost, right? And then the buyer's PITI for 79 days. I don't know what the buyer's PITI is, but their loan amount is 400,000. So their PITI is probably going to be around 2,700 to 3,000. It's probably less than that. It's probably like 2,500 per month. And this one's giving it to us at 2,800. So when looking at these two offers and trying to figure out, well, which one's the strongest, right? I feel like this one's a clear winner. It's $20,000 higher with a $20,000 appraisal guarantee. So even if we only appraise at 650, we're still going to land at 670,000. It's got a longer close of escrow and still 30 days at no cost for the rent back. So basically they're going to get to stay in the home for an additional 30 days without paying rent, or pretty close to it, because we've got a longer escrow period. And so I would say this is probably the winner. It's a 10-day loan, 10-day appraisal, 10-day investigation contingency. Looking at them side by side, I would say this Moxel is probably my second top pick, just looking at the offers without doing any counter offers or anything. This would be my second top pick. So it would be between this one and Adams. If I could get this one to come up, so I did send this guy an email and say, hey, I really like your offer. I really like that you're allowing the buyer to stay in the property until they leave town, which is fabulous, and we really appreciate that. There's about a $40,000 gap between you and the highest offer. And for $40,000, my sellers may be willing to move twice. But if we could get that gap a little closer, like if you could meet them halfway, then that may make you guys the winner. So do you think your buyers be willing to come up to 690,000? Right? So before I've even had a conversation with my sellers, I'm trying to negotiate a little smaller gap. So if they decide they want to stay longer, because the cost to move, the cost of paying rent for the time, everything may total, pretty close to 10, 15, 20,000 by the time you move twice. So if we can get this one up to 690, then this one's a solid competitor to the 710. If they want to stay in the property for the whole time.
You think it's gonna appraise close to 710?
I do not think it'll appraise at 710, but there's no appraisal contingency.
Yeah, that one's a nice one. That is crazy.
I think
Those people sound like they're really, really love it, or they're really desperate.
Right?
But maybe they've been looking for a long time.
Right.
It could be. It's a very aggressive, solid offer. Like, it's hard to say no to that one, but if they want to stay in the property, then this would be my second choice. And that's kind of my thought process and my theory and looking at it and how I come to that conclusion.
Did you
The
say you're
majority
gonna counter the first one at all, or you're not gonna counter it at all? Are you gonna ask for more time?
I
No.
did message that agent and say, hey, it's between you and another offer, basically. The other one's allowing them to stay is that date, 89 days, putting them at like April 9th, 18th. Is that the longest that you guys can allow them to stay, or can we get closer to that June 1st date? To see if I can get them to come a little further, figure out something creative to get us there.
Also, I saw a few of these, the deposits. One was like $1,000, the other one's like $20. Like typically, aren't they supposed to put down like 1% of the price?
Yeah, so what's considered customary is a minimum of 1%. So you can always come in lower. However, it tells me that like this poor Ryan over here at 650,000 at a $2,000 deposit. He probably doesn't have a lot of funds available, right? He doesn't want to lose money. He's afraid he's going to lose money, and $2,000 is all he's willing to part with. Number one, he doesn't trust his agent. And number two, he probably doesn't have a lot of funds, and it's an FHA loan.
Yeah, look at Maxwell. They put 20,000 down,
Yeah.
and a few of the other ones almost $20,000 down.
Yeah, so 20,000 seems to be kind of right in the range. They're coming in like, hey, 3. And remember, anything over 3% is just fluff, because our liquidated damages clause is going to cap what our seller can keep at 3%. So that's a lot of these guys are coming in right at probably about 3%.
So I know I've asked this question before, but I still struggle with it. So with the no appraisal contingency, they will lose their deposit.
If the appraisal comes in low and they're unwilling to move forward and they cancel, then they would lose their deposit if they canceled based on that contingency.
Okay. But they can fall out if they see something in the investigation and.
Well, these guys can't because they.
Oh, no, because they tied it. They released it all. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow.
They really want this house.
money.
What?
Who gets that money whenever whenever somebody puts a deposit down and they back out? Who keeps that deposit?
The seller gets the deposit.
Wow.
So what's an investigation contingency? The investigation, what does that mean?
Yeah, so what falls underneath that investigation contingency is the physical inspections of the property and the investigation of like the area and insurability and all of that. So it kind of falls under both the physical inspection and buyer's investigation of things that aren't covered under the other contingencies, so under the other contingencies, you have like review of disclosures, review of leased and liened items, HOA, preliminary title is what's broken out as individual. Everything else falls underneath that investigation. So it could be, again, having any physical inspections done, and you can still have inspections done on a property when you don't have an investigation contingency, but you just can't, if you cancel based on any of those, you lose your deposit.
So then
is it-
offer 1, 3, and 8 had 0. So like you said, they really wanted this property because that didn't matter to them.
Yep.
Could it be because it's a newer property that they opted for no inspections?
Yeah, because it's a newer property. They felt fairly confident that whatever was there they could handle. So that's why. Any other questions? Was this helpful?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Where do you what do you use to build all your offers?
So
Put them side by side.
So yeah, so the old one is in the PC Peeps folder. I'll throw this new one into the PC Peeps folder. It's done in a Google Sheets document.
Got it.
How did the other house, the Stonegate one, how many offers did you end up on that one?
We ended up with 2 offers
Over or at?
one a little below and one at, and we're trying to get the little below up to at.
We thought it was gonna be a bidding war on that one.
We were hoping a little higher, although it comes up against appraised value once we cross. So I'm concerned at this point about even 800,000 appraised value, and crossing over that definitely would become an issue. So,
Gotcha. Thank you, ma'am.
yeah, absolutely. Any other questions with regards to the offer review process and comparing the offers? When it comes to loan type, conventional FHA is my least favorite. FHA usually means they have challenged credit or no money. So if it's between an FHA and anything else, unless they've removed all their contingencies, I would rather go with anything else. Conventional and VA are very similar, even though VA is 100% financing. That doesn't mean that I write somebody off because they're a VA buyer as having no money. They're using their benefit that's been given to them because they served our country. Right. And so I don't write them off as, oh, they have no money. No, it's they're using their benefit, which allows them to finance 100% of the property. If I was a military, I would utilize that benefit too. There's no reason not to leverage that out. And so I don't necessarily mark that off, but I am going to look at what their deposit is and what the other contingencies are in place to determine, like, do these people have money or do they not have money? Like this one only put down a $6,800 deposit, which is typical for the area, but going in against multiple offers, I probably would have increased this just a little bit to show that we're a strong buyer, right? But just because they're VA doesn't mean they're not strong. Like I've had VA buyers do 100% purchases at $1 million.
Question.
Yeah.
So I have someone that's maybe they can go FHA or conventional. Do I, even though he gets a better, the payment ends up being about the same in the end. Should I suggest maybe to go conventional so he'll get his offers accepted? They're in the 550, 600 range. So it's super competitive.
Yeah. So I would probably submit the offer conventional, and then he could still decide to go with FHA financing. Just that loan contingency, being able to cancel on the loan contingency be based on his denial of conventional financing. So
say that again.
So where the loan information comes into play is, let's say that somebody's qualified like this one for both VA or both FHA and conventional financing. I would probably submit the offer with conventional financing so it seems less scary to a seller, but your buyer can still pursue and close with FHA financing. It would just mean that if something happened with his loan and he could not close escrow, the loan was denied, you're going to need to show proof that the conventional loan was denied.
Okay. Because when you write in the purchase, you write, is there a box that you have to check there saying that you can still change financing? Nope. Or no? Okay.
No, the buyer has the ability to change financing.
Okay.
As long as they're in good faith pursuing some sort of financing option, they're good. It's just is going to come down to if you need to cancel based on the loan contingency, you need to make sure that they were denied for the type of loan that they qualified or that they said they were going to use.
Okay. So I'll just get a pre-qualification for the conventional and then change maybe later. Okay. Thank you.
The other thing about VA, so if it's VA conventional, I don't write my VA buyers off, but I would like that if they approached and addressed the pest clearance, because that's really, with a normal house, that's what's going to come into play, is that the VA is going to require that pest clearance. So I would like the VA buyer, if they're trying to be really competitive, I'd like them to address it and say, hey, the VA, my buyer's willing to pay up to $5,000 of any lender required repairs. Then my seller knows that up to $5,000, the buyer's going to take care of. On top, if there's more than that, then it'll be up for negotiation. But that way I know that the buyer's not going to come right out the gate and expect the seller to pay for those pest inspection repairs. Or if they are, account for that when I'm looking at the purchase price, right? So if I'm comparing 670 to 650 conventional versus VA, I'm going to be like, well, there's not going to be $20,000 worth of lender required repairs on Finchley. It's just not going to happen. There's not that much that needs to be done to that property. So I would still feel comfortable, even with, I would just brace my seller in advance that, hey, 670 is our strongest offer. It's VA though, which means we're going to have to pay for pest clearance. So I would anticipate that being between $2,000 and $3,000. So it's really like an offer of 667,000 versus 650 is how we're going to compare that to look at it apples to apples. And then my guess is that pest repairs on Finchley is probably going to come in less than that. Right? But that's how I'm going to look at it with the seller. So we're going to take that into account with like best guesstimate of where we think those VA repairs are going to sit. Or do like what we did on Stonegate where we address it where, hey, we're asking the buyer to pay for any lender required repairs. Makes sense to everybody? Cool. Then I'm going to wrap up for the day. It's 11:59. This was recorded, so I'll get it posted. No training tomorrow. I'll be in a car with limited cell reception off and on, but if you guys need anything, call me, text me, reach out to me. I'll get back to you as soon as I have reception. It's just kind of spotty between the no man's land of Oregon and Washington.
Amy, and you don't have any more houses for opens this weekend?
No opens this weekend.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Don't be sorry. Look how many you've sold recently.
I'm on track. I'm on track to close on my goal. I'm on goal.
Good job.
All right. Fabulous. If you guys need anything, holler at me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, Amy. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.